So, since I've now presented my long-belated top 10 best movies of 2024, it's time for me to present my long-belated top 10 worst movies of 2024. Now, I said in that last video that I thought 2024 was a pretty good year for film overall, and while I still generally think so, I look at the top 5 movies on my worst list and I think, ugh, maybe I'm being a little too optimistic. And I know one of the movies I've got on this list is really going to make me some enemies. Don't care, this is my list. And since nothing in my life has turned around for me since my last video, I'm still being held back through no fault of my own. I am taking it all out on these 10 wretched movies. So sit back, relax, and enjoy my rage. This is my top 10 worst movies of 2024.
Number 10.
I still have a lot of fun with the first 2 Despicable Me movies, but with Despicable Me 4, this series has shown itself to be running low on laughing gas. With a villain whose motivation is no fun and the minions' antics getting stale, it resorts to the Secret Life of Pets 2 route by just squishing together 3 or 4 short films and calling it a movie. I did like the ending, and no, not because it ended. Gru and all the villains of the past films singing "Everybody Wants to Rule the World." I love that. It'd be a great way to cap off the entire series. It's just that this is probably not going to be the last one, and I don't see it getting much better from here.
Number 9.
Despicable Me 4 wasn't the only dull animated feature that year. Number 9 goes to the Garfield movie. Much like Scoob from 2020, it's just the characters in name only with no understanding of what they're about. I knew right away these writers had never read any of the comic strips when the movie opened with Garfield caving in to Odie's begging and giving him a treat out of the goodness of his heart. Yeah, that's the character come to life, alright. And come on, Chris Pratt makes a terrible Garfield. He's just way too likable a guy with too upbeat of a voice. The live-action movies were definitely worse, but at least the casting of Bill Murray made a whole lot more sense. But something both this and the live-action movies prove is that some things are meant to be comic strips and can only work as such.
Number 8.
Let's put a frown on that face, apparently. Number 8 is Joker Folie à Deux, a sequel that not only didn't need to exist, but seemingly goes out of its way to prove that it should not exist. Sure, the cinematography and Joaquin Phoenix are still worthy of some praise like before, but the addition of the musical numbers is unnecessary, and sometimes the line between reality and Arthur Fleck's mind is hard to discern. And at the end of the day, it left me scratching my head thinking, what was the point of even the first movie now? The depiction and resolution of the Joker is antithetical to that first film, and even cynical toward the audience for it. Somehow at the hands of the very same people who made it. It really gives the impression that Todd Phillips is ashamed of his masterpiece that is that first film. And I don't know, maybe this is why he's had no other credits in the 5 years between the 2 films. He just went out of the public sphere ashamed of his creation.
Do you think God stays in heaven because he too lives in fear of what he's created? Here on Earth?
Number 7.
One thing that's always sure to make my worst list, a Christmas movie that has no soul. Enter RedOne. A movie that was clearly designed for streaming, but then The Rock saw Oppenheimer in IMAX and was like, yeah, we're on par with that. For real, that's apparently what happened. But no, this deserved to get dumped on Amazon Prime. It's a meandering plot with a bunch of derivative ideas from not just other Christmas movies, but other movies in general. They didn't even try with Santa's bodyguard. He literally has the powers of Ant-Man. And in the third act, the heroes get out of containment in the most inanely simple way possible, which should also mean that the villain can very easily escape after her defeat. Can we just command RedOne to pull a holdo maneuver on the Death Star and be rid of both?
Number 6.
Disney has been at it with these live-action adaptations for over 10 years now, and there hasn't been a single decent one since Jungle Book. They continued that losing streak in 2024 with Mufasa, the Lion King. While it may not be as blatantly void of creativity as the remake that preceded it, it's still a pretty big heap of zoo-doo. The character motivations are so incoherent. Scar is just whatever the plot requires him to be at any given point. he repeatedly flip-flops from one side to the other like May in The Acolyte. And not only is the reason for his name ridiculous, but it winds up making Mufasa himself look terrible when all's said and done. And then it thinks it can win us over with a bunch of pointless origin stories for little things. No way! That's how Rafiki got his stick! No way! That's why Pride Rock is shaped like that! My life is complete! Not to mention, between this and The Little Mermaid, Lin-Manuel Miranda has not been bringing his best effort to these movies. That, or he genuinely thought we'd get chills from the villains singing, "I'll make you go bye-bye."
Number 5.
Oh, now we're getting into the thick of it. Number 5 on my list is The Book of Clarence, a movie that cannot make up its mind what it wants to be. For a good half the time, it's trying to be a Monty Python comedy, which you would expect given the casting, but then the other half of the time, it's trying to be legit straight-faced biblical fiction. Going from a man speaking while the movie around him is frozen, to a PG-13 version of Passion of the Christ, the tonal inconsistencies are beyond jarring. On top of the strangest incorporations of real biblical figures, Clarence freeing Barabbas from slavery and teaming up with him and his gladiators? Huh? I left the theater truly befuddled, and I still haven't a clue what this movie was trying to get across. Father, enlighten them, for they know not what they do.
Number 4.
Video game movies have been on a slight incline as of late, but every once in a while, we still get a Borderlands. I've never played the game, but you don't need to in order to hate it. Featuring the first ever bad Cate Blanchett performance, and not one but two of the most annoying characters in recent memory, Borderlands is one of those blockbusters that leaves me fascinated in how much nothing I got out of an experience with over $100 million behind it. It's an excursion at the theater that's all mindless flash and cacophony while being simultaneously dull and lumbering. Seeing how this movie is directed by Eli Roth, I would make a joke about how he's best known for making torture films, but that's just too easy.
Number 3.
Man, it's a bad time for superhero movies, but how about one that doesn't even really have any superheroes in it? Number 3 goes to Madam Web. The most entertaining things about this movie was watching it lose to the Bob Marley biopic, and just how openly unenthusiastic Dakota Johnson was during the press tour. As for the movie itself, I had to curb my boredom by forcing laughter at all the ridiculous things that happen. A newspaper headline detailing something that just happened earlier that day, the lead character's ability to see into the future randomly kicking in only at times when it's convenient for the plot, and her powers get activated because she, got submerged in water? Are we to assume that she's never gone swimming or even had a bath in her life? Add to that the unnatural dialogue, the laughable dubbing, and the Pepsi product placement that Terminator 2 would call overzealous, and this movie justifies itself as the joke that it started out as just for coming off the heels of Morbius. And yet, it is not the Marvel movie from last year that utterly broke me.
Number 2.
There are 206 bones in the human body, 204 when I'm watching Deadpool and Wolverine. I was going to make one long rage video about this dreck, but eventually I gave up. It is just so overloaded with putrid nonsense that I was at wit's end just trying to process it all. I don't care how much hate I get out of putting this movie higher than Madam Web and Joker 2. I will take either over the pure cringe that was that opening scene, which ghoulishly annihilates the perfect ending of Logan, and it's never uphill from there. I'm sorry, it astounds me how easily people will fawn over cheap nostalgia bait, like throwing in a bunch of cameos means it's a love letter to Marvel, when it is nothing more than one big bag of hate mail. For crying out loud, the whole plot, or lack thereof, hinges on literally replacing the Wolverine, rather than just letting the character rest. And then they try to hang a Green Lantern on all of this by having Deadpool proclaim that it's disrespectful. Yeah, that's supposed to make me feel better about it because why exactly?
Well, it's hip writing fact number 1. If you say you're doing something painful and stupid, it's immediately no longer painful and stupid.
Every single fear I had of what Marvel might do with the multiverse came to fruition here and then some. And I'm not kidding when I say it has single-handedly put me off of Marvel for good. Bring on the nasty comments. Come hell or high water, screw this movie.
Number 1.
So then, what could be worse than actively destroying what we love? Well, maybe nothing is, but there is still one movie from 2024 that I hated watching more. My favorite flick of the year was a horror movie, and as the saying goes, as above, so below. My number 1 worst movie of 2024 is The Strangers Chapter 1, an infuriating and interminable 90 minutes of scare-free drivel. The first Strangers movie from 2008 was a pretty decent home invasion thriller, and now we have a prequel that says, let's just do the exact same thing as that first movie, only horrible. Yes, it's a prequel that has no idea how prequels work. Rather than explaining how things came to be like the marketing suggested, this trio of murderers are just doing what they would eventually come around to doing in the first movie. Wow, that explains a lot. There's zero suspense, zero thrills. I was never the least bit afraid for the couple being hunted. They have plenty of opportunities to call the police before their phones get smashed, and yet never bother even when the strangers are pounding on their door. And when you know that your house is being invaded and you hear noise coming from the bathroom, naturally, you shrug it off and go check the closet, right? I just sat there the whole time, pulling my hair out at what blithering morons these people are. And that's not to mention the worst insult. The movie acts like it's innovative by having a character who has a breathing problem that requires an inhaler. We've seen that in 1 trillion other horror movies. It's not suspenseful. Why do we have to keep seeing that stupid cliche? Is there just some studio executive who's got some weird kink for people having difficulty breathing? Just why? The previous bad sequel, Pray at Night, now looks like The Shining by comparison. The Strangers Chapter 1 is indeed the worst experience I had at the theater throughout all of 2024. And yay for us, The Strangers Chapter 2 has taken the release spot for Saw 11, a movie that probably won't even happen now. How lucky can we get? So what were your most hated movies of 2024? Whatever they are, let me know in the comments. And I shall try to get my end-of-the-year list of 2025 done closer to the end of 2025. That's a wrap. Thank you for watching. Like and share, subscribe for more. This is Pop Culture. I'm Alex Pop.